This is, as usual, not a paid advertisement. Welcome, Danny, to our non-paid internet protest live stream test here. Not only protesting, but also testing our neighbor's Wi-Fi for more live streams to come, that we know what we can stream there. And if your local Wikipedia is down and you have a question, just ask. We might be able to answer it even if your local Wikipedia is down. In case you wondered, thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to share, like and subscribe. While we also need to get some more work done. But it's probably not a bad time to express here some internet opinion as usual. Otherwise nothing changes and nothing happens anyway. Also really tired of politicians who need to over-regulate everything. Stop making new stupid laws. Simplify the existing mess. And if you are international subscriber and recurring viewer, what is this about? This is about EU-wide regulations of copyright reform that most likely will result in even more upload filters, because apparently can't have Chinese censorship enough. Need to copy it all over the world in the name of copyright reform. And zero drop frames, amazing. Amazing Wi-Fi our neighbor has here. So this is some new copyright reform, Article 13 in the EU. Unfortunately, as you know, too many people elect dumb politicians and they want to change it so that internet platforms are more responsible for user uploaded content, and this most likely will result in more upload filters, more filtering, more content ID matching, and so on and so forth, making the whole open internet less open and less community commentable, and maybe even resulting in memes and other fun comedy and parody falling into the upload filters and the usual nonsense of modern politicians, because apparently they did not went to school anymore or didn't listen there and need to copy all the biggest censorship money can buy. But you probably want to build your own opinion and Google this EU copyright reform. And if you don't usually go to elections because you think all politicians are dumb, then maybe in the future you want to go there and vote at least someone who is not as much dumb as most of them, not doing any specific paid advertisement, just maybe think for yourself who is the least dumb, and instead of not voting, vote for someone. Otherwise, idiots like those just do random nonsense that destroys our free and amazing internet that we built ourselves the last 30 years, because apparently copyright holders can never get rich enough, even if they destroy the free speech and the free internet. But again, you probably want to Google that yourselves. And again, as usual, if you are one of those increasing people who don't even go to elections because you think all of them are bloody stupid, maybe better go vote for someone not as bloody stupid. But maybe you agree with this, then maybe leave in the comments below why you think Chinese kind of upload filters are amazing. And zero drop frames, amazing. We are of course overheating this poor surface because Intel ultra low voltage CPUs. Just some test for more live streams to come, what we can do here and what not. So yeah, I guess you heard the message. Probably don't want to listen to this rambling here for an hour or two, unless if you want, then that's fine, and leave me a comment below there. Otherwise we have plenty of work. And by the way, to say something interesting, yesterday night, I think, yes, yesterday evening, I updated LLVM. Can you also show some non-protest stuff? So subversion commits, of course, here are not many CPU cycles left for Firefox because Intel Core i7 ULV nonsense. So nothing much loading here. Still need to buy some nice ThinkPad or something sometime soon. And the LLVM compile times, because last night LLVM 8.0 was released and compilation took, yeah, super slow, unbelievable slow. Compilation took a whopping 1 hour on the data center Intel Xeon. And this is also slightly ridiculous. LLVM ceiling started as a small and fast compiler framework, and now it is takes 1 hour on an, what do we have even there, 8 core or something, Xeon of yesteryear. Slightly ridiculous. I actually wanted to test compile this on the Ryzen. Could do this another live stream. And yeah, so this still didn't load. Now it loaded. So as you see here, probably, I hope at least anyway, if this is on. So we updated LLVM ceiling from 701 to 800. Yesterday already. Compilation took a whopping 1 hour. And yeah, slightly sad, but that's what it is. On the plus side, I'm sure the Ryzen will build this faster. I think the Linux kernels are all modular Linux kernel compiled in just 15 minutes on the AMD Ryzen 2700 from also already last year. And thanks for the comments, FCK.ART. And what did I wanted to say? So the thing is, of course, LLVM ceiling we need for also Mesa, for the 3D stack, open source 3D stack. And I was thinking already if we maybe change our T2 builds to skip GCC. The only problem with this is that we still need it for the Linux kernel. Usually on most architectures, I think the Linux kernel still doesn't build with ceiling. And that is, of course, slightly inconvenient if we wanted to save quite some megabyte. Also compile time, I compiled GCC on the Ryzen the other day because I was setting up some new virtual machine stuff, test stuff there. So a lot of server kind of virtual machine stuff also coming up here sometime soon, next week or so. And I think GCC compiles significantly longer than the Linux kernel on the Ryzen. I think the Linux kernel probably compiled in 50 minutes. GCC with all the Golang and whatnot is in the meantime in there. Not to mention the C++ library and of course multilib for building most of the stuff twice for 32-bit compatibility libraries. And I think this was more in the ballpark of 30 minutes. Slightly crazy, this compile times. And mind you, this is a 16-core Ryzen with 32 gig of memory, of course, building in TempFS. So here's the sheer size of modern open source projects slightly getting out of hand. This is why I was thinking already. Actually, I was thinking for 5 years already, for really long time, to make a ceiling-based test build there with T2. I think actually most build, I think I even 1 if not 2 years ago I test compiled, by the way this is German, sorry for that though. I think the English Wikipedia did not do this here and also not the French one, otherwise I would shown here the French one. And yeah, I think a long time ago, 1 or 2 years or even longer, most stuff compiled. The problem is of course open source code relying on GCC extensions or bugs or features, and then stuff just doesn't build. Like when we built for Musel, this alternative C library, also quite some stuff didn't compile, and the same goes for Clang obviously. And the biggest problem, so most of the stuff built, especially with a couple of small fixes, but the problem is Linux kernel, of course, making use of a lot of GCC extensions and such. And there were a lot of patches, but the patches were quite hefty. The last time I saw there at least 20-30 patches or something. And yeah, that is of course not helping much if we can compile everything but the Linux kernel with Clang, because it would save us on a fast Ryzen quite some 15 to 30 minutes nowadays, and also quite some size, installation size, download size, you name it, because GCC not only provides C, C++ compiler, Go and Objective-C and whatnot, but also the C++ standard library, so quite a big package. And yeah, doesn't help much if we can't get the Linux kernel. We need LLVM Clang anyway, at least for 3D Mesa, for all the more modern 3D drivers anyway, AMD, Intel and such. And yeah, so we need Clang, and I mean initially it started off as a smaller, more compact compiler infrastructure, just that in the meantime everyone slaps his and her pet project in there, so now it's huge. And yeah, so we need Clang for 3D, so that is of course would be an option. Just Linux kernel could also, so if this ultra low voltage Intel CPU would have any spare CPU cycles left, by the way, this is so saturated here on the surface that we are with screen capture, we are only hitting 25 frames, slightly set. That is why we need CPU competition and good AMD CPUs, otherwise Intel, as you've seen the last years, was not the most amazing. We could actually quickly Google, not only have here only protest, but also Google Clang Linux kernel. You see I type here and nothing much happens. Building the Linux kernel with Clang becomes popular again, of course, for Unix. Is there something only for Unix? Anyway, the comments are cut. I have to say your videos remind me more level 1 tech videos in Linus Tech Tips. Thank you very much. I don't really try to copy here someone, I just try to promote here open source and stuff, and try to do open source, because obviously if I want to maximize my income I would simply do commercial software each and every day, but we also want to make the world a better place. This is why unfortunately we need to protest a little bit here, because FCK Article 13. So not also got an email, so my other PC. Okay, this is the next telephone conference for next week. Let's save this to the calendar because we are busy people here. And finally managed some more comments. That is amazing. I really like our recurring theme here with people joining. Christian, welcome, good day. Finally managed to set up a cross-compiler toolchain for MIPS. By the way, GCC 5.5 played much nicer. Did you do this from scratch, or with TOS CrossTool NG or Linux from scratch or something, or T2? Probably not T2, I guess. GCC 5.5 is of course super old. Recent is 8 point something, 8.2 or what we are. Slightly start to lose overview, especially as all projects constantly change their versioning system. And as you've seen in my Octane videos that I downgraded voluntarily, I could of course use latest GCC there on the Octane, and I did so last, actually this is already a year ago. Time is going by fast. We need to work on our YouTube content here to gain more subscribers faster than time is going by. So yeah, I used GCC 8 something, I guess, a year ago, but it was a little bit slowish, especially if you want to compile something natively on your Octane. or ARM board in a router access point, firewall, NAS, storage, you name it. And this was really annoying if you want to, because we can't cross-compile everything. Of course we could, but some packages like you see Rust, Firefox really cross-compile hostile, and a lot of this stuff is not set up to cross-compile in T2 right now because time, and that is what we do this YouTube content for, as you all know, to gain here more sense in the tip jar for more open source stuff. And you see everything we talk about, there's always something to do, something to improve left and right. MIPS, ARM, HPPA, PA risk, you name it. And I voluntarily downgraded. I think the downgrade from whatever I used in the MIPS videos, the downgrade was probably 25% faster, going down from whatever that was, GCC 8 to GCC 7 or 6 or something. So, oh, by the way, do we have, I did not, damn it, we have actually not too bad right now, but yesterday we had really hefty touch disease here on this. So but you see how inconsistent this is. Right here we get, yeah, damn it, this was touch disease. Damn it. Thank you, Microsoft, for destroying this live stream. You buy PC gear for Linux compatibility and all you get is touch disease. Thank you very much. There's even, why is FN here just super slow? That was on the other. I also noticed the other day how inconsistent this is. Notice that this input has here not, yeah, thank you, touch disease. Can you please stop for a second to cut and paste? Actually, I should probably configure my startup script so to just disable this bloody device here. And here, thank you very much for that amazing thing. Not Wolf was the pointer. This is also Neu. Love this ever random changing stuff. So yeah, to the point of sealing, you see, becomes more popular, but still not upstream. What is it here? More sealing functionality has been upstreamed in sealing for helping kernel build various needed features, and RN register naming for ART prototype, ASM go to support, and various fixes here. You see, even this was just recently, November, so even now still some stuff going on the sealing front there. Linux kernel, I named it. I was only thinking that you make better content. Yes, I understood, this was nice to hear. And open source thinking stuff. Thank you very much. So these days I'm slightly limited with gear. I already traveled with one small bag inside my traveling bag full with gears. The Lumix camera for proper recording, dongles, cables, keyboard, and a second surface thing here for some secondary stream and stuff and everything. And yet it is, not only did I take the wrong keyboard adapter, the USB PS2 for the Octane, or actually Origin 200, I also could have taken a micro HDMI to DVI cable to try to stream with this Epiphone HDMI capture thing. But yeah, so if when you are a YouTuber, then half of your bag is full with electric IT tech gear. What I find interesting, of course, sometimes I make a little bit jokes. The other live stream, I joked slightly about Linus's channel of this other small channel building up their audience. Of course, I'm aware that they have some millions of subscribers, and this is of course just making a little bit fun here, trying to make some jokes. Of course, quite some respectful audience and company he built there, and this is also why I thought, why not try to improve our open source business with more YouTube live streaming and have here hopefully eventually more regular income to buy some studio decoration, more gear and test stuff. And also because the funny thing is, with even a year or two ago, when actually from the very beginning, when I only had 250 subscribers, companies were already willing to send me test stuff, like Lenovo, very thankful to this. And the fun is when I, as open source developer with our T2 and stuff, for decades I was asking companies, they nearly never sent something. only very rarely did companies with our T2 open source stuff send something for testing and stuff, and you have a YouTube channel with 250 subscribers, and Lenovo says here, sure, no problem, here you get it for 3 weeks. Really interesting. So this is also in this regards how this helps us. But what I find really funny, I respect that Linus Tech Tips there has so many subscribers, but I find their theme, their kind of society, they play their role play there a little bit strange in my opinion. Somehow not so, I mean, I already made other jokes of dropping CPUs. I think in my whole life I have not dropped one CPU, although I have to admit when I roll the camera here then often more shit stuff happens that usually like shorting something or dropping LEDs on the floor when soldering them in the Octane and stuff, so much to that. So yes, I have to admit I dropped some LEDs, some LEDs, but yeah, otherwise I would probably try to avoid dropping $10,000 worth of Intel Xeon CPUs on the floor, but that's it. I think they even dented there some pins, but whatever. And what are the comments? Christian Everson, I never got around to testing a later one. Several X6 versions and all were broken in one way or another. So yeah, that is why we have T2 for, and why we try to avoid patching things, but sometimes we have to patch things. And this is usually, you see, you try to compile it and something's broken. This is just my experience. Everything was vanilla fetched directly from the authors of all packages. So yeah, maybe you want to try to use T2 another day for that. Shameless advertising, self-advertising plug there. And let's check our neighbor's Wi-Fi throughput here, although mostly limited. Hey, 0 drop frames. That's nearly slightly better than in the office where we stream without Wi-Fi and yet with wired Ethernet sometimes have some drop frames if our TG3 Broadcom Ethernet doesn't die in the Mac Mini, so yeah. And yeah, this is exactly what we have T2 for, this, I hope, readable scripting of open source build stuff. I could theoretically log into our Ryzen, but one thing is I don't want to type here some passwords here too much. Although of course SSL key certificates here, but nonetheless don't want to risk it too much already, often risky enough typing stuff. And also the surface obviously is already on the maxed out CPU wise. Actually the funny thing is CPU load 29%, as you probably do not see because it's probably not in the clipped canvas region there, in case it was visible. And yes, I think this is somehow the thermal design power limit in the GPU there, because probably the GPU is currently maxed out here encoding the video. So really strange that Firefox is that laggy, whereas our CPU stuff is here. So CPU is actually, but at least the battery is charging, I think. I'm not sure. I think with 100% CPU load the battery is not even charging because the surface power supply is not delivering more power than leaving something to charge there. So you see CPU, but actually this is more. This is strange. OBS says, where is OBS? OBS says 20, okay, 30. And does it really look like 30? Looks more like, somehow looks like more like 30, but anyway, could actually also run top for a more serious indicator for that. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this protest live stream, just to spread the word. Spread the word. You maybe, actually, this is strange. This says here 100, okay, 110. Okay, but this is actually okay from 4 cores. Probably can go to 400%, I guess. So yeah, whatever. But you see, not really snappy here. And when we click here on this site on Wikipedia, you see there is some website here, contact your politicians, or this is only German. You probably want to look up if you're in the EU, if you're in Europe, or any of the, more specifically, any of the EU member states, you probably want to call your representatives and convince them not to pass Article 13 there. You see how slow this is loading, so much to with 25 to 30% CPU load leaving here any CPU cycles to browse the internet. So yeah, look up your representatives, get on their nerves, because, and this is ridiculous in my opinion, how this, by the way, many of them are in the age of pensioner. Can they not go to pension and make a job free for young people, the generation Y here, or millennials have to do unpaid trainee jobs, and even at politicians, unpaid politician trainee secretary jobs. That is ridiculous, and this old-fashioned people who are well into the pensioner age do not go into pension, and taking the jobs away from young people who also want to make a living and a career. And yeah, and in general, I'm anyway in favor, no matter what's the content of the silly laws, I'm in favor of reasonable laws, and obviously we need laws against theft and robbery and such stuff, and crime and all regular street crime and stuff. But regulating here, in my opinion, if some corporate company, for example, if a video is posted in Huel just to make money ripping off some video, of course it is copyright infringement, but not using snippets there in reviews and parody and stuff. This is ridiculous. Also, in general, in my opinion, first of all, keep these laws stupid and simple. In general, not only in code, but also in law and stuff. So society, keep stuff stupid, simple. Don't overcomplicate things. And of course, I'm pro copyright in general, but not for the sake of filtering here. In former times in the Cold War, everything was anti-communist, and now we get this communist style pre-filtering of everything. This is, and also in previous times was always the Chinese evil filtering and manipulation of the people and opinion and stuff. And nowadays in the Western states we get exactly the same, in the sake of copyright and against terrorism. And copyright, obviously I'm against terrorism, but in my opinion we don't need to censor ourselves all over the place for the sake. I just need to be regular policemen and investigators investigating, and not pre-censoring the internet in the name of terrorism and copyright. Leave in the comments below if you agree or not agree. If you agree, probably call your local representatives. I hope you enjoyed this small irregular live stream chat here and learned something. Much appreciate when you tune in here for this irregular reoccurring live sessions, and I probably need to work a bit more now and not only chat here on live stream and protest. I hope this live stream without audio hiccups and interruption, and I promise to eventually get a new machine. Hey, 0 drop frames over our neighbor's Wi-Fi. Amazing. Thanks Brew, much appreciated. And so FCK.ART Linus is making videos for masses. So the thing with Linus, I appreciate the effort, and of course it's quite some efforts. What I find funny, I mean, in my humble opinion, their content is not as amazing as they are using 4K red cameras or 8K red cameras, or whatever, how many cases red cameras are. In my opinion, if they use such gear, then in my opinion the content could be slightly better, because somehow it's a little bit of a funny show there. But you can also leave in the comments below what you think about this. Of course, again, appreciate any of these efforts, and their kind of business is certainly more amazing than this old-fashioned paper kind of news business who want to push here this stupid Article 13 copyright reform stuff. And by the way, this is not a copyright reform, this is pushing copyright back into the last century, not into the current millennium. And by the way, old-fashioned paper business, if you cannot get your papers sold, then maybe it's time to modernize your business and not bring here some unnecessary and internet destroying copyright reform to the EU. And by the way, to the people from Google and Facebook and Apple and Microsoft who are listening, this is exactly what you get with lobbyism. So all of you like Apple, Tim Apple and such, who whisper there in president's ears, that is exactly, and obviously donate $1 million here and there for their anti-repair lobbyism and whatnot. This is exactly what you get, your own medicine, because obviously Google and YouTube are also protesting this Article 13 nonsense, but on the other hand they are the same who pay this questionable, if not to say allegedly, maybe partially corrupt politicians, this lobby money. And when you spend millions on lobby stuff like Google and Apple also do themselves, then you cannot be surprised if old-fashioned paper business is doing the same and is destroying your, or maybe potentially threatening your YouTube business or other Google business. And yeah, just your own medicine, just what you get for donating, if not allegedly, maybe potentially bribing some politicians to influence the lawmaking process. And by the way, the last time I checked, politicians were elected by the people, for the people, and not for big corporations. But with that, it's probably time to end this live stream. I hope you agree and learn something, and if you don't agree and did not learn something, then leave in the comments below what you think, like and dislike. And in general, so we could have done some, yeah, but the surface is overloaded anyway. Doesn't make sense to log into some data center when there are not many CPU cycles left for SSH, secure shell encryption. FCK.ART writes, politicians are not elected, they are selected. So unfortunately, there is a little bit in this. This is why I do not vote for any of this. So for example, for all those bloody German politicians of my German home country there who push this in the name of the old-fashioned paper magazine copyright business, I can speak in my good name that I did not vote for any of those. And so I'm not guilty for this stupid change in law there. And I can only recommend you to vote for politicians who promise other things, like those amazingly switched on guys there and others who also speak out there, Pirate Party and other nice fellows. And obviously we need more than 2 or 3 switched on boys and girls sitting there, but more than that, and the other old-fashioned paperheads need to go to pension urgently before they destroy all our future and laws. The problem is, of course, Wikipedia writes here in the German text, this is our last chance, like forever or so. Where was it? This is our last chance here. And of course, it's not the last chance. Even if they pass this stupid law, we can still change it in 5 or years time or something. But of course, it's not the last chance, but this certainly sets the message and ruling for quite some years to come until we can reverse this. Obviously, that takes 5, if not 10 or 20 years to reverse such stupid decisions. So that is why I wanted to start participating in such kind of influencing here. That's what we are influencers for. Yeah, this is why I have to say, at least in Germany, the politicians are not the most corrupt. They are maybe not the best, but not the worst, although I did not vote for many of them. This is why it's also important that you go for an election and not vote for the corrupt ones. That is my tip for that. And in general, I know many people, including even in my family, like some uncle there and some aunt there, who don't go to an election because they think their politicians are all bloody stupid. I usually try to motivate them to vote for anything else in any way, but you simply can't go lazy. You see what happens with stuff like the Brexit. You don't go for the election and then your country leaves the EU. And yeah, but as usual, leave me in the comments below if you don't agree or agree. And with this, I guess it is time to end this protest live stream. I hope you learned something, and by the way, leave me in the comments below. Of course, I see a little bit from the likes and dislikes what you like and dislike, but as usual, leave me in the comments below what you like to see. This Hewlett-Packard PA RISC tinkering last night was slightly too slow going for my own taste because this boot issue there, and of course funny that initially it didn't boot because somehow I think the firmware got irritated, corrupted or so, loading there from the file system. This is why otherwise it would have booted earlier. Besides, I had this typo of kernel version. I mistyped there for 17.12 instead of 14. So much to the small number typos there. But aside from this, it also was then irritated. This firmware or bootloader did not want it to load anything anymore, required and reset. And I wish it would have booted faster. It's a little bit waste of time there in the beginning, but that's what happens when you live stream. If you pre-produce this, then you can cut out all of this non-booting stuff, and then it is more brief and more of a summary. But if we live stream this, and unfortunately sometimes stuff like this can happen. But again, I saw quite some thumbs up, so thank you for this, thank you for watching, thank you for joining, thank you for sharing, liking and subscribing, and I hope to see you soon for all the next videos to come.